Hello, everyone, and welcome to In 15 with Rinchin, a show where top experts share their most practical advice in 15 minutes. Today on the show, we have Lara Omolara Osiyemi, who is a product leader with over 15 years of experience in telecommunication and technology industry. She is the founder of the Product Cradle, a community that supports aspiring, transitioning, and experienced product managers in building their personal brand on LinkedIn. She also helps product managers to develop their skills, showcase their expertise, and achieve their goals. Lara, as I can see and I have observed her on LinkedIn, also enjoys creating and nurturing a culture of collaboration, learning, and growth among the product people. Today, Lara will be talking about the journey of a product manager, the one that they undertake focusing on topics of cross functional collaboration and personal growth and development. Lara has some interesting stories to share with us, and we have 15 minutes to do that, so let's get started. Hi, Lara, and welcome to In 15 with Rinchin.
Hi, Rinchin. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. I'm super excited for our conversation this evening.
Me too. So let's get started. We're going to talk
Awesome.
a lot of things on cross-functional collaboration, personal growth, and development.
Absolutely. Just prior to us starting this session, we're just talking about storytelling. And I
Absolutely.
recall telling you about so many interesting stories that I have, in terms of cross functional collaborations. And, one of such will be one that I'll be sharing this evening with you. Uh, so, a couple of years back, we had in the my former organizations we're migrating
Yeah.
from an existing platform to another platform, but quite a number of people that were on the existing platform were not convinced about the new platform. But the interesting thing was that the new platform was supposed to actually have better features for them. So there was now the challenge of how do we get these people to move. One
Yeah.
of the things that I actually took upon myself then was to actually work with all the stakeholders. So the first thing that I did was to have internal conversations with, my own cross-functional teams to tell them that, you know what, guys, we would need, to convince our partners, because really without the partners we only had a platform, so we needed our partners to actually have their content on the on the platform for for it to move ahead. And then after I got their buy-in, in terms of our internal stakeholders, the thing was now I needed to get my content providers, the third party content providers, convinced about it. So I decided that we would have a conference. It was supposed to be a 2-day workshop type conference where I would invite all of the stakeholders, both internal and external. And then I also invited the platform provider, so that they will be able to showcase all of the features of the new platform and to be able to show them what to do. But because we had, I'm not exaggerating, over 100 third party providers, we couldn't bring everybody in.
Wow.
So what I did was I said, you know what, we had the top 10 performing providers. Everyone came together for the workshop. It was supposed to be for 2 days. The good thing about when you bring in stakeholders is the fact that you only need one person to be convinced. And he will be able to spread the news, because it was a very small community for the content providers at that time. Interestingly enough, and that's where the story is going to, we did the first set of migration, not with all of the services, with the identified services, because recall that we were using the services that actually were the top grossing services. At the end of that month that we did the migration for the first set of services, the revenues grew by 96%.
Wow.
I recall very well. And, it was so amazing that I recall then my general manager at the time, when she saw the numbers, called my attention to it and said, wow, fantastic. I mean, imagine how, these revenues had grown. And even the third party providers, our partners, were super excited that, they wanted to now move all their services onto the
Yeah.
platform, because it wasn't all there, it was just some of their services. And they had extended, to all the other people that were not, part of the initial transition. So everyone now they were like trying to get me to put them on. So there was like a roster that was created, and,
Yeah.
I had to create how they will be moved. Everybody wanted to be on it. But now there was one part of the story that you would enjoy. So my general manager said, how do you think that we can actually get everybody in line, in terms of what we're done? So she asked me to do an email and share with her. She wanted to know everyone, that was involved, cross functionally on the project. And I said, you know what? Why don't we kind of like appreciate them? And we ordered, I planned and we ordered cupcakes. And I'm talking about almost 100 cupcakes, if I
Wow.
recall well, because,
That's a
the
lot of
build,
cupcakes.
that was a lot of cupcakes. So the building that, we were in at the time was 10 stories, and
Wow.
each of the floor had a different department. So starting
Hmm.
from IT to marketing to sales to finance, and everyone that was involved. So we did the email. In the email, she included not only all, so what she did was, I think, the execs, and then, in copy were all the other
Yeah.
stakeholders based on your different department, irrespective of your level. And, after thanking everyone for being part of, the successful migration that was done, it was included in that mail, the 96% growth. And I can't remember the exact figure in millions, but it was huge
Yeah.
anyway in dollars at the time. And as a result, you know, as the email was going out, we had timed it, myself and my other colleagues and all the other support staff that were going to help us with the cupcakes. So it was timely that as they were getting the um, cupcakes, they were receiving the email. And, it was said in the email that, so we're appreciating you. So this was a token of our
Wow.
appreciation. So as they got the cupcakes, they were seeing the email. One thing that stood out for me was the fact that a lot of people used to do the work, but they did not
Yeah.
understand the impact of the work that they were doing.
Yeah.
Because I now started getting people on the side asking me, oh, Lara, we didn't know that, those services that you guys work on was making that kind of money. They were surprised. They're like, really? I mean, just those,
Yeah.
SMS-based services, we're making that kind of money. And, so it was kind of like an eye opener for them, one. And on the other hand, it was actually something about working as a team, because
Yeah.
everyone came together for it. And I think they kind of liked the fact that it wasn't about the cupcake. It was more about the fact that they were carried along, and then
Yeah.
we made them see the value of what was done in terms of numbers. Matrix, and
Yeah.
data is something that everyone, always moves everyone. And it was quite exciting for them. They enjoyed, of course, the cupcake. And then,
Yeah.
they enjoyed, they enjoyed, the fact that they were part of, something that was so amazing, growing the
Yeah.
numbers. And then, of course, we also had our third party partners that were happy and satisfied, with the move. And that also opened up, the channel for us, because it now allowed everybody else, we got their buying and they were all willing to proceed. So, for me, that was how coming together, working cross functionally, communication was something that was very, very, very important, because carrying
Yeah.
the stakeholders along needed us communicating. And it was communicating not just in word of mouth or by emails, but it was actually communicating in action. So the
Yeah.
communication came out by you showing them, the power in them, getting their buying, because having their buying was very important to the success of the transition that was done. Our partners were not left out. The platform providers were very supportive, and outside of that, they were willing to go the extra mile to ensure that everything was seamless, as it were.
Yeah.
So cross-functional collaboration for me, I learned quite a lot. It wasn't as easy as it sounds now. It was a
Yeah.
whole lot
I'm
of
sure. I'm
emails,
sure.
and at the end of it all, yes, we all
There
did
was,
have, um, this type of relationship that we had built over time. So that's
oh,
my own story in terms of cross functional collaboration.
wow. For me, Lara, a couple of things really stood out in this story. One was, of course, the whole beginning of it, where you have to convince people to change. And that is always the most difficult thing to do, to convince people to change or to move away from what is very comfortable to something which is completely unknown. And as a product owner, that becomes so important as a skill to manage that kind of a change, which you did very successfully, not just within the organization, but also with the vendors. And then this whole thing about it's so beautiful, bringing everyone along, not just during the process of changing things, but also once things are done, communicating back the impact and also appreciating everyone's efforts. Because at the end, especially for the product managers, it's so essential to bring everyone along, because a product manager sets the vision, but for execution, they need support from everyone. And after
Absolutely.
the execution, when there's success, people like you make it also something about collaboration and bring everyone together. So these things really stood out to me, Lara. Um, I have one follow up question. Your
Yes,
story
please.
obviously has all the lessons in there for the product managers listening to this one. But I have a question. If there were two tips from, and I know two is very narrow, but from your 15 years of experience, if there are two tips that you'd like to share with all the product managers or transitioning product managers around collaboration, what would those two tips be?
Okay, so I think one of the things that stands out for me is you have to have allies, right?
Yeah.
You have to build allies. It's something that I learned how to do. In terms of
Mm-hmm.
allies, you don't treat your stakeholders as business as usual. You don't treat them,
Mm-hmm.
at arm's length, that just do your job and that's it. You have to treat them, as human beings. You have to see them as people who also have emotions. So, of course, that's where, you having an emotional quotient, or you having the kind of emotional intelligence and empathy, towards them. So the people that I worked with, one of the things that I always try to do is, it's not something that is very common. I mean, because I always have it from my other colleagues. How did you get them to do that? When I spoke with them, they said no, that I had to go, I have to be on not a queue. There's like a long list that you have to wait for your turn, or and all of that. And how come you got their attention? It's because something that I always did. um I'm not sure if you call it a bad habit, or maybe it's not such a bad habit after all, is that, okay, so because the organization was telecoms, and of course we always used to have events and stuff like that, and I was in the
Yeah.
marketing department, most of these people work behind the scene, like
Yeah.
engineers. You never see them, they don't know what goes on. So what I try to do is, anytime there's like an event, for instance, on a Friday, we always have a lot of sponsors or sponsorship events that we do. I will get tickets for my engineers. And I'll tell the guys
Okay.
that are organizing it, I'll tell them that if you want your service, because more often than not, you either need a short code,
Yeah.
to be developed for you, or you need something that will be the engineers that will do it behind. So I'll tell
Yeah.
them, if you want this thing to happen and you have your event is on a Friday, then I need tickets for them. So,
Yeah.
I'll get tickets, So of course I already started building allies. That's where I'm going. So
Yeah.
it wasn't about the tickets. It was just about the fact that these guys always appreciated the fact that I was always, advocating for them. So if
Yeah.
I come, they'll put my request front of the line. Trust me.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
of the type of relationship. And apart from that, I always carry them along. Like I mentioned earlier, the first thing that I always do is before the request even comes, I'll start with a phone call. I'll call you and tell
Good.
you, you know what, guys, a request is coming. We'll need you guys to be able to help us with XYZ. And I'm doing the documentation. You'll get it in a few. But when you do, what are your thoughts about it? Let me know. So sometimes after I do my call, I'll still follow it up by coming to your
Yeah.
table and sitting with you and discussing. That is even before we have any, you know, kind of stakeholder meeting at all, so that I would have had that one-on-one. So by the time we have the stakeholder, meeting, even if there's somebody from another department that wants to counter it, once I already have, my
Yeah.
own allies on my side,
Yeah.
everyone will be able to be on board with whatever it is I'm coming up with. So one
Yeah.
thing that is very important is you need to build allies. You should not. And another thing, apart from building allies, is don't work in silos. A
Yeah.
lot of people have this silo mentality. It's all about me, myself, and I. You work as a team. So outside of you also working allies outside of your team, don't be the lone ranger within your team. Carry everybody in your team along. Let everybody know what it is you're working on. Let them understand the type of challenges that you're having, and all of that. If you need your general manager, your senior manager, or anybody to be able to put in a word for you with somebody else in another department, because you've already carried them along, even if you're
Yeah.
not there, right? And they get a phone call or anything like that, they're already aware of what's going on. And then they will be able to carry along whatever it is that you're doing. But if everything is with you, and you're the
Yeah.
only one. There's some people that they like to hoard. I don't know if you've experienced them before. They hoard information, they
Yeah.
hoard everything, they just keep it to themselves, like,
Yeah.
oh, this is my project, I'm the one that's in charge of it, I'm the product owner, and all of that. And as a result of that, you isolate everybody. When
Yeah.
anything goes down or is crashing, everything's going to crumble on your head. It's just going to be you alone. But once you have other people on your side and you carry everybody along, you are able to ensure that all the time, even when you're not there, your project is still moving as it should. So I think those
Yeah.
are two key things that I think you need to build allies. You also need to make sure that you're not working in silo, you're not alone. You also have, your team. You work with your team as a team, not as one person and as a lone ranger. Thank you.
That is wow. I think those are two amazing tips that I've heard from you, especially from the product perspective. I feel a lot of times within, and I've worked with quite a few organizations now to understand this, is that everyone sees product, as a separate organization itself because they treat everyone, like that. While it's not always the case, but in a lot of organizations, I've seen that being the case. And you talking about allies and, breaking those silos, I think that is the best way any product team and an organization in general can succeed. So amazing. Thank you so much, Lara, for that.
Thank
Um,
you.
on that note, I really enjoyed our conversation for In 15 with Rinchin. Thank you so much for all the golden nuggets that you had to share today. I really have a lot of takeaways from this conversation. Thank you so much, Lara.
Thank you for having me, Rinchin. It's been fun having this conversation with you, and I'm looking forward to all of the feedback we're going to get from this conversation, and looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Rinchin. All right, then. Bye.